Okay, I'm going to try to make a short video explaining how MayaStar animation is set up and why. Okay, so here's the bento skeleton, or the bento avatar. And this is the bento avatar you get when you go MayaStar activate female bento. Okay, this is the first one you have to activate. This is the one that you do all your rigging to. And you'll notice down here in the corner that Z is up, X is straight forward and back, and Y is left and right. Now this is the way the skeleton has to be set up for rigging to. And that's the requirement for Second Life. Otherwise it won't work. You'll notice that here, if you look at the fingers, if we go to the top axis view, or the top view, if you barely see it, that these joints, it's straight left and right, straight forward and back, and straight up and down. Okay, that is how the skeleton in Second Life is set up. I didn't make it that way. That's the way Linden Lab, for some reason, when they created Rigged Mesh, decided everything was going to be pointed straight forward and back, left and right, and up and down, regardless of where the child is. Now, the bad thing about that is if you go to rotate, you get this weird rotation angle, right? Instead of rotating along, the way you would think it is, you get, let's see it. Okay. Oops. There we go. You get, dang it, come on. So you get this weird bend off to the side. That's because they're all rotating left and right. So straight left and right, and not following the angle for the finger. Okay. So, and that's for rigging, and everything has to be rigged that way, and all animations have to take that into account. Okay. The next thing that is an issue is when we go into animating our avatar in MayaStar. So you go MayaStar activate. Oh, and let me open up the outliner. Okay. So when you're rigging, you only have one skeleton to worry about, and it's set up the way it's supposed to and all that kind of stuff. There's only one skeleton in the scene. And then when you go to animate, say the bento avatar, so come here, animate bento female. Okay, now when you go to animate the bento female, let me do a couple of things here real quick. One, there's going to be two more avatars in the scene. Here is the original skeleton that you rigged to, right? This is the one that you actually rigged to, and I had to change the names of the bones and stuff to get this to all work. You're not actually animating the skeleton, and you're not actually exporting out that skeleton, because that skeleton was made with Z up, X forward and back, and Y left and right. Now if you look over here, this is for animating. All animations in Second Life, Y is up, Z is forward and back, and X is left and right. So it's a totally different skeleton with a different orientation. And so, but this bones are still oriented in the same way. Let me get rid of this human IK character. Get rid of that. Get that out of the way. Let me increase the joint size. Animation, joint size, so you can see a little bit better. Oh, that's the animation skeleton. See, this is the animation skeleton. You come down here. See this red one? That's the animation skeleton. Okay, and there's the animation skeleton. Y is straight up and down. well, this is the animation skeleton that you actually do your animations on. So if we were to select the hierarchy and then rotate this, and if we go to the up view from the top, you'll see that it bends correctly like you think a human finger would bend instead of off to the left. That's probably why your so if you try to do hand animations, your fingers might get all messed up. So this skeleton, this animation skeleton, which is this one, is set up to be easier to animate with, so that all the joints are pointing directly, that each child is pointing, or each parent is has an axis pointing to the next bone in the chain to the child, so that when you rotate it, it rotates the way you expect it to rotate. Okay, but the skeleton you actually animate, you export out of, that gets, you know, the information gets exported out of, is this skeleton. Not the one that you rigged to, but this skeleton. So there's actually 3 in the scene. Now let me hide that one and show this one. So this was set up kind of like the one that you saw before. If we go to the top view, we see that the joints are straight forward and back, straight left and right, and straight up and down, not pointing to the child of it. So if we go here, and we select that bone and go select hierarchy. Let's select one bone, select the hierarchy. It should have selected this bone. Okay. And now if we go to rotate, it gets all funky. Anyway, it doesn't bend correctly the way it's supposed to if you try to animate this skeleton, because of the way these joints are set up. But these are the way they are in Second Life. So what happens is, let's go back to the animation skeleton and say we select the hierarchy. Don't know why it's not doing it on the other, and we bend this finger. See, it bends like you would think a normal skeleton would bend. Finger. Okay, but if we come back, and you see we're only changing one, we're only rotating it on one axis, and it's 45 on the z-axis. We're only rotating it on that one axis. Now if we go to the actual skeleton that we're exporting out on and select that same joint, you can see it's actually rotating on 3 different axes. It's not easy 45 degrees. That makes it, if you try to animate this skeleton, it gets so much more complicated. Although this is the skeleton as it really is in the animation skeleton, or the way the animation is set up in Second Life. So that's why there's multiple skeletons in the scene. Is this one that you rigged to, it's set up for Z-up, which is the way Second Life is set up. That's this skeleton. Oh, now I got to bring down that display size again. You know, that's that one. But that's not the one you export out as. It's this one that you export out. And so it is this animation skeleton. This skeleton is constrained to this one, so that when you move this bone, it moves the corresponding bones in this one. And then this one is constrained to this one, so that when you move, so that when this one moves this one moves this one. So what you end up seeing is that. The blue one is the Second Life skeleton. This red one is the animation skeleton. And this pink one, or this one that's now green, you can see it there, is the one that actually gets exported out. So it gets really convoluted The reason for the animation skeleton besides make this bigger again. Okay, the reason for the animation skeleton, besides it having better joint orientations to make it easier to animate with, is you'll notice that's the one that actually gets exported out on. And that's the one you actually animate with. Okay, now watch when I... Okay, so this red one is the hip skeleton for export. That's this one with the name hip in it. See? You'll notice that it has the regular joints, 3 joints for the fingers, for second life, but if I come and show the animation skeleton, you see this extra joint here. Now this extra joint here on this skeleton isn't really necessary. It just makes it easier for the HIK controllers to make controllers that make it easier to move the fingers. But if you were to try to use, just to animate this skeleton here, the one with hip that actually gets exported out, if you were to use it by itself, you would have to add a bone there, because the BVH exporter has to have an extra bone on the end of each bone chain. This is a bone chain, this is a bone chain, that's a bone chain. You know, each end of the fingers is a bone chain. It would need an extra bone on the end of each face bone, an extra bone on the wings, you know, on the tails, on the legs. You'd have to add all those extra bones, because the BVH exporter, if there's no extra bone, it won't export out. It doesn't export out the rotations or translations on the last bone in the joint chain. But by constraining it to the animation skeleton, it makes it not necessary to have those extra bones on the skeleton that you actually export out. It's as if this extra skeleton adds as if there's a bone on the end of each bone chain. Okay, so it gets quite confusing and quite, you know, complicated. And the reason, you know, so that's the reason why there's 3 skeletons. But having 3 skeletons in the scene causes problems with people who are trying to import skeletons and do target reanimation or target retargeting of, say, motion capture stuff, you know, because now there's these 3 skeletons in the scene, so it gets a lot more complicated. One of my customers who I was helping out is going to be probably coming out with a plugin for Maya, which I gave them my blessing. They're going to come out with sort of an add-on to MayaStar, which will do without all these extra skeletons, and make it possible just to use the original skeleton that you rigged to. They figured out a way how to reorientate the skeleton completely without detaching and having you to reattach your mesh with a script. It was a brilliant idea. It's a brilliant idea. I wish I came up with it myself. I wouldn't have had to come up with these 2 other skeletons. And so they came up with an elegant solution that I wasn't able to figure out how to do. And so they're going to probably be selling this plugin, which will just be a little button that you add on your shelf or something like that, in which you select your original skeleton, and then just hit a button, and it turns it into an animation skeleton. So that's awesome. But another thing you might have noticed is that the avatar also gets bigger. You know, that used to be that the grid was a lot bigger. The grid actually stayed the same size. I made the avatar bigger. In fact, I made it 39.370079 times bigger. That's because BVH animations in Second Life, a single unit is 1 inch, not 1 centimeter. or 1 millimeter. It uses animations in Second Life, uses for units, inches. Oh God, why'd they do that? Besides using Y up instead of Z up. So it just adds all these complex factors that come into animating for Second Life. So that you have to scale the avatar up from the rigging avatar, which is, it's disbelief, just trust me. It's because if you look at the difference between, I think it's either a millimeter or a centimeter and an inch, there's like 39 millimeters per inch, something like that. So anyway, so that's why this had to be scaled up. So that that's there so that when you move the avatar around in three-dimensional space, when you move the avatar in three-dimensional space, it looks correct when you upload the animation to Second Life. Because if you try to rig the avatar when it's small, animate the avatar when it's small down here, it will, let's see, it will look like, say, star. Let's bring this back down. Normal. You can see that the grid looks huge, but this is actually the size that Linden Lab created the skeleton to fit in Second Life. They had screwed up. Whoever created the avatar thought they were working in meters, and the default unit in Maya though is centimeters. So they thought they were working in meters when really. So anyway, so the skeleton was originally set up to be this tiny. It's believe me, there's all these technical reasons. So anyway, but if you were to animate this skeleton, even if it was Z up or Y up instead of Z up, and all the bones were correctly orientated, it would if you made her walk forward like that in an animation, she would barely move. You would even think she didn't move at all. That's because this is not the right units, because of the BBH, how they set up animation to work in Second Life. So, but like I said, God, I wish I knew the name of her off the top of my head, but she probably wouldn't want me to tell you because she's probably not ready to sell it yet and doesn't want a lot of people bugging her yet, or him. I don't know if it's a her or him. But anyway, they'll have a plug-in for MayaStar that will probably just create a little button. You click on the button, and then it will set up the skeleton to be the right Y up and the right scale and everything, so that you can then just go ahead and animate a single avatar. She'll probably even have bones added to the end of all the joint chains, like I was telling you, so that the BBH exporter will export out properly. And then you only have to deal with one skeleton, but you'll still have to deal with the finger bones, joint orientation not being real good for rotating the fingers. So I don't know how she'll get or he or she will get around that particular issue. So unless she's going to make, or he, I keep saying she, it doesn't necessarily have to be a she, not, unless they are adding to where it creates controllers for you, such as when you go to animate the tools, or when you go to animate the bento female, how you have, these are the controllers that make it easier to move the fingers and stuff. Unless these are set up in such a way where their orientations will rotate the finger naturally. I'm not sure how if they figured that out. And if you haven't seen it, one of my newer, I just made a bunch of videos like a week or two ago about how to replace these controls. These controls that come with MayaStar suck. there's a lot of problems with them. You want to replace them with the newer. These are from Maya 2000 or Maya 8.0, which is from 2007. These suck, but it's the only way I could get controllers to work on all versions of Maya, not just not just Maya 8.0, or if I used a newer version of Maya. This is Maya 2014. Anybody with an older version of Maya, if I created controllers with this program, wouldn't be able to use the controllers. But I have a video showing you how to replace these controllers with the newer version that newer versions have that works so much better. Yeah. So anyway, like I said, there's a video. It's not that hard. Once you do it once and set up and save the file, you won't ever have to do it again. Yeah, so that's why there's all these different skeletons. The original skeleton, if you were to just want to animate with the original avatar, say you didn't need the bento skeleton, so you're making another animation that you don't need the bento. It's set up a little bit differently. Okay, it only has two skeletons: the original one that you did, and the one that you animate with. It was easier that way because I was able to do it that way because if you look at the original skeleton, and let's get rid of these human IK controllers, they just get in the way. If you look, the whole skeleton pretty much is set up straight left and right, forward and back, up and down. There's really not anything on an angle, even though these look like the eyes look like they're on an angle. They're really not. They're not in a long joint chain. The closest one that you have is that one. But they're pretty much set up so that if you rotate, this, it moves the way you think it would. So it's really because of bento and that we have these wings at these slight angles, and we have the fingers at spread out fingers, that the joints really get hard to rotate in the standard layout like I showed you in that one finger. The middle finger is more or less straight forward and back, and that would have been fine, your middle finger. And the ring finger might have been okay, but the pinkies and the thumb and your pointer finger or index finger, they're off of the center enough to where just rotating the fingers becomes a nightmare. That's why I added the second skeleton, or the third skeleton, I should say. So anyway, so that's a really long explanation of what's going on, and so anyway, so I hope that answers some questions out there as to what's going on. Now maybe when this plugin comes in, okay, now wait a minute, okay, now I'll show you if you want. Let's do this again. So those of you who don't care about animating rigged stuff that you've created, like your mesh clothing or your mesh avatar, and you just want to make animations, what I would suggest doing is, if you're going to be animating a bento, is start off with a female bento, and then go till like you're going to animate the female bento. Animate the female bento. Okay, and then I would just delete everything you don't need. Like the original skeleton, everything you don't need, human IK, IK, like I said, redo the IK so that you know, and even the animation skeleton you can get rid of. So you just have the one that you're going to actually export out on, which is that one. Now remember, you'll have to add bones to the end of all these joint chains, and then you'll have one skeleton that you can animate with, one in the scene. You know, don't worry about the positions of the bones that you're going to add. Zoom in. Okay, on the finger, you know, this is the Second Life skeleton as it is. You'll have to, like I said, at the end of each joint chain, you'll have to add a bone at the end here. Now remember, these joint orientations, see this middle finger, the joint orientations are more or less in line, so this wouldn't be very difficult to animate at all. But this one, they start to get off, and same with this one. So just be aware that you're going to have that problem. But if you're doing something like what is it called? Motion capture, and you're bringing in a motion capture skeleton, you may not need to have a joint, an extra joint at the end of each joint chain in order for the BVH to export out. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure if you'll need one or not. If you try it, if you find that you're missing the joint at the end of the finger in the animation, it's not bending like it's supposed to, then you'll need to add a joint to the end of each joint chain. You know, and then you would retarget, you would use this skeleton, because this skeleton is set up with the joints correctly orientated for Second Life, how it has to be for Second Life animations. You know, so you would retarget your motion capture onto this skeleton here. So this skeleton is what you'd want to retarget onto, and then use the MayaStar BVH exporters to export out. If you haven't, I haven't gotten an update out yet for MayaStar with the fixed BVH exporter 1.5. I haven't gotten that one out. It's 1.5.5, but where you download MayaStar, there's free download to download BVH exporter 1.5.5, it's called. And I showed you in a video how to make a button so that you can access it and all that kind of good stuff. And 1.6 will still work, although, like I said, watch my videos. Watch my latest videos about these exporters and stuff like that, and you'll understand what's going on. So yeah, so this is the one that you want to be using. So if you want to simplify the scene and animate with just one skeleton, do that. Or you can wait till the plugin for MayaStar that somebody is making, once they get it up for sale, then you can just have a button where you just click it and go straight from, like I said, you'll start off with a regular avatar, you know, rig to it as normal, you know, like here, rig to it as normal, and then you would just click a button there, and then it would reset up the skeleton and everything so that Y is up, it's in the right scale, everything, and that will be a lot faster and quicker. But like I said, if you want to simplify MayaStar so that you can do retargeting and stuff like that, I just showed you how to get down to one skeleton that you can use. So anyway, I hope that clears some stuff up for some people out there who have been asking me stuff about where they were having problems with the animation and they were trying to do retargeting of motion capture stuff that they had either bought or had done themselves. So, hope that helps. Thanks. Bye-bye. See you in the next video.